hear anything, right?
Yes, sir. Making sure everyone is muted and we can get started here, and I can get started right now, if that's okay. Welcome, by the way, for all those of you joining us. This is Nick Edwardson and Jim Benneyan going back and forth over the voice here, working out a few last-minute kinks, but just in the nick of time, we appear to be ready to go. Of course, if you're here today, you are probably aware that you are attending a Center for Health Organization Transformation, or CHOT, deep dive webinar series. Today's webinar is going to be hosted by Dr. Jim Benneyan of Northeastern, who will be talking about a PCMH scheduling model that optimizes primary team continuity. As a brief reminder, before I hand over the floor to Dr. Benneyan, today's webinar is being recorded. We will take the recording today immediately after the show and host it to CHOT's member-only section, where this can be viewed asynchronously. Also, a reminder, we have a number of functions available to you today during the presentation. Dr. Benneyan's talked about probably only going shorter in on 30 minutes, but that would leave us more time for questions afterwards. Those questions can either be posed via the live call-in option that you guys are all dialed into now, or it can also be made available through the chat function, which I will send out a chat right now to show you exactly how that all works. It should pop in here, excuse me. Sent a text out to everyone saying send questions here. If throughout the presentation you'd like to send in a question for Dr. Benneyan to answer, I will make sure and get him all of those questions when he gets to an opening. A couple of quick reminders, a few housekeeping chores. This is the first of 10 deep dive webinar presentations that we will be making this summer. It's going to be a very intense series, but we, of course, welcome and encourage your attendance at all of them. If you have a webinar that's not of interest, but you have a colleague within your organization that comes to mind, please feel free to send along the invitation to them, because we're ultimately trying to expand reach here at CHOT into our 15 IAB member organizations. Further reminder, most of you might have received an email from me yesterday evening reminding you about the upcoming CHOT fall meeting, which will be in Waltham, Massachusetts on October 16th and 17th. And the hotel information can be found on our website, www.chotnsf.org. I'm going to hand the floor over to Dr. Benneyan. Jim.
Thank you so much, Nick, and thanks to the team at Northeastern for helping troubleshoot the technology just then. So, as Nick mentioned, Northeastern University, of course, is one of the currently 4 sites, universities involved in National Science Foundation Center to apply systems engineering, improvement methods, health services, and so on to healthcare. So I really have 2 objectives: to talk about this project, both the disseminative project that was partially funded by our CHOT Center that all of our members essentially co-own with us. But there is we have nice pilot results. So we've done kind of a phase 1, and as part of the mission of all the universities involved, we're seeking secondary test beds and spread opportunities. So as we go through this, and let me put the agenda and the outline, but as we go through it, and all of us, I think, are tremendously interested in connecting into other health systems other than our initial test beds with so many of our projects. So we'd love your help connecting and seeking other colleagues where we could do very similar work or try to replicate this. So I'd like to give sort of a brief overview of the general problem we've been working on and where we are so far in terms of developing really 2 tools to, we believe, create better scheduling templates for team-based care. So it's really broader than primary care. It would be, but that's where we've been focused. But it could be where you have sort of this team-based care approach evolving. Summary of that, then summarize where we are in terms of the results of a pilot case study, which we've completed. And it basically, hopefully, this will take 20 minutes, and then we could have some conversation about additional applications and how we might go about that. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish. Just a quick acknowledgement. This is really a joint project. We have another grant so this is partially funded by our CHOT Center, our National Science Foundation Center, Texas A&M State, Georgia Tech, and Northeastern, and funded by some grant through CMS to do similar type of work and really try to drive stuff into practice. We're going to kind of look at this at the surface level, but if anyone is interested in diving deeper, reach out. We have a working paper on our website. We're trying to get tools up, and you get our contact information there. Again, I'll hammer on this. We're really hoping to replicate tests that are in the life cycle. So the general context, I think everybody's aware, patient-centered medical home, or if you work inside the VA health system, that's an activated care team. But, a central tenet of where we're going is team-based care. Family medicine and primary care, this is, it's bigger there. For a variety of reasons, team-based care leads to greater continuity, leads to greater relationships, leads to sort of all sorts of things that I'll talk about in a minute. The challenge of creating scheduling templates is like a Rubik's Cube or a to-do puzzle. There are all sorts of constraints on everybody's time, other obligations, and you create a reasonable timetable, a template is optimal or reasonably good. And what does even optimal or reasonable mean, we'll talk about. But the challenges in doing this is the complexity and everybody's other things, where they have teaching or research responsibility, particularly in family medicine. If you choose to go into family medicine, you focus on families and may have one of your own, and starting one and may not be full-time. So how do we create schedules where we have good coverage across days of week, sections of the day, morning and afternoon, if they're in weekend hours? How do we create good templates that better serve the patients? And then if you have residents in the mix, that's a whole other layer of complexity. So there's literature in the healthcare literature. This is our sort of cause thought exercise, moving from left to right. If we improve the coverage of the team, so if four of us are the primary care provider, an RN, a medical assistant, and a resident, and collectively we're the team managing a panel. A patient would like to be seen when they're available at their convenience, and if they can't, they have to do one of two things: wait to see their provider or somebody on their team of choice, or come in and have a visit with a more unfamiliar individual. And those are sort of bad things. So if we can get better templates that provide better team coverage, that'll do great continuity, defined in a very specific way. But percent of time I see somebody I've seen before is one operational definition, and reduce delays to come in. Those things, there's experience and literature, lead to good stuff happening in health. They lead to greater satisfaction. It's a more patient-centered approach. They actually tend to drop inpatient utilization, unnecessary visits to the ED, for example, because I can't see the person I'd like to see. So this is our driver diagram, and on the right, how would better scheduling impact what IHI and CMS would call the triple aim of better care and better care experience, better overall health. Here, health is more trusting relationships, great compliance to annual or periodic visits, whatever the latest advice is, and greater compliance to all of the wellness, the well child visits to screen for rectal mammography, pap smears, etc. And in the long run, less utilization of other avenues to get care, or lower utilization of the system because of that population health would drop down costs. So it's kind of the CM view of this type of project. So here's the concept in the top of this slide: conceptualize 4 care teams green, blue, red, and yellow. And we have a number of individuals who are working or able to provide clinic time some part of their FTE, some part of their week. And it's going to differ for everybody. And if you break down the blue team, you see the breakdown there. But the real challenge, oops, I have a blank slide here, is how do we create something like on the right-hand side of this slide rather than the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, if you look at certain days of week, Tuesday morning, we've got people covering from the hypothetical red team, one person covering from the orange team. But, you know, if my provider and the people I've seen before and I know is on the green team, and days my day can do this, I need to take time off from work, wait till another day where I can see a provider that's familiar with me, or I really need to come in because of that nagging feeling I have, whatever's the cause for the attempt to schedule. So I'm going to see somebody I'm unfamiliar with. So if we can create better templates, as envisioned on the right, where any day of week and session, somebody from every team is covering. Now, whether they have availability or not, this is kind of a Zen thing. Just the fact that there's coverage increases the likelihood that there'll be availability. So whenever I can peel away from work or the rest and come in for a visit, I can see somebody that I'm familiar with. So that's the general concept, and it's this complex. It's an easy idea. It's complex to reason out how to create a better template. So that's what got us on all of this. And so I acknowledge, of course, I'm a faculty, so I'm acting and involved in the work, but we've had a number of students, PhD, masters, and undergrads working on this problem. So we have basically two tools. One is a spreadsheet tool that just allows you to play what if. If this is our current template, S on the left is an example of a template. Over the top are individuals 1 through 14, and the rows are days of week and sessions, morning and afternoon. And where am I? Am I in the family medicine clinic? Am I pulling administrative responsibility? Am I doing some didactic lecturing, et cetera, et cetera? But quickly analyze that template, which you just maybe look at visually, and you don't have good coverage by team in terms of uniformity. This is just, you can play around with it and say, well, I wonder if I swap out this and that. I wonder if I swap out this and that. What if Ben and I change places? Does this get any better or any worse? And you could hunt in text for a template. It's useful. So this what if tool, but to try all possible combinations of who works when, where, subject to all sorts of constraints. On any given Wednesday morning in the sports clinic, we have to have at least one person covering, and you've got to satisfy all of that. It turns into two things: a very long exercise and a real headache. The other thing that we did is took an optimization approach. I want to show you the concept of a linear program. It's actually what's called an integer program, but I'm not deep. So we mathematical algorithm. The objective function is to create better templates, and that's mathematically said. We've tried a couple of things here. We've said, let's maximize the number of sessions. If they're morning and afternoon, 5 days, with 10 sessions. Let's maximize the number of those that have at least one person from all 4 teams trained. Find this in other ways, but we want to maximize coverage, and we had to have an operational definition. So this objective function is expressed mathematically, and then can we perturb, what can we do pairwise changes on? We can change the provider assignments, right? We can decide who's working where. So usually see the equation, and so if a provider left-hand side across all possible responsibilities on the morning. The thing I'm assigned to, place to be, has to be equal or less than 1. You can't tell me to go teach and also be in clinic. So that's the idea of the sum over all possible responsibilities of provider during session M. You can't put me in 2 places at once. And then all of these other constraints we have to satisfy, contract or culture. Everybody should work a certain number of clinic hours. Everybody should have responsibility here and everywhere. And so you write all of those constraints. Even nobody should work more than X hours a week. And if I'm 0.5 PE, divide that in half, and so on. Define all of the particulars about the situation mathematically. And if you're familiar with integer programs, this you can kind of see on the equations on the left map to the word height. And if you're not, that's the general idea. We can define this mathematically. Let me give you a little insight. So what's going on in just one of these equations is the following. We have in clinic 7, which happens to be a sports clinic, on Wednesday morning. And we want to provide that for a parent to bring their kids in, like sports type of thing. We want to have that. So somebody's assigned to it, and if we sum over all of the residents, if I'm assigned to it, B is equal to, for instance, Jim, B is equal to 1, and if Sarah is not assigned to it, B subscript Sarah is equal to 0. So if we add up who's all those zeros and ones, it shows 1. Somebody's got to work it. And how basically these equations work, and then the subscript W is all the box where we want to have sports clinic. This is what it really looks like, and it looks at 2 things. It either looks like, not that big a set of equations, or quite overwhelming, depending on your experience with this type of thing. But this is the type of solution that's produced. Who does what, when, where, and none of the constraints are violated. Nobody's working more in any function than they're supposed to. Every session has as much coverage as it's supposed to, and so on. There are a couple of ways to accomplish this. This is finding the way to accomplish that maximizes the number of sessions that have at least one person from every team working. So that's the idea. And we've had a couple of cracks at this and tried, different active functions, but we've seen almost the same and pretty good results. So we've done pilot tests on the left side. The bullets describe that, but a mid-sized family clinic in the greater Boston area. You see the size and scope of it in terms of the number of providers and the number of first-year residents and second and third-year residents. In the mix, a lot of the full-timers are part-time because of responsibilities. I'll show the results, but again, what we're hoping to do in this year is really replicate this in another system or adapt it and learn from that and sort of refine as needed. So 2 things. Once we came up with the method, rather than tweak actual system and tools, we looked back over the last year and said, what was session coverage like last year? And that would have been 2012, 2013, July to June. And then ran our model and compared how coverage would have been if we had running our model. So this is just a retrospective offline. And any given week, went up 20%. So it's 20% coverage. Hopefully all the other good stuff will fit. That was proof of test. Then what we just completed is this prospective test, where on Labor Day 2013, we went live with new templates. And the health system have been measuring continuity access. So continuity is described as anybody who's had a visit in this health system in the last 36 months was their visit with somebody that they have seen previously. So continuity has gone up. Days until third next available appointment. Actually, this is a different measure now, but days until people are seen has gone down. And they're looking at inpatient admissions and use of inpatient admissions. The title here, I apologize, really this utilization because I believe ED visits are in there. But utilization of the system are going down, and what's quite interesting is compliance to wellness visits are going up. Really cool. Is this because of our work with this health system, which is really engaged in this type of work, without us? Or is it sort of just an artifact of everything that else is going on in the discussions in healthcare and the good work we're doing? That's why we really want to replicate, test this. Those were run charts. We've done a lot of statistical analysis, including rapid time series and other talk with you about. So there's statistically significant improvement. Puzzle. Well, that's the capacity. But in terms of where we are, really, we've got really sound results that have really some important measures. And we're hoping to work with other members of CHOT or their healthcare systems more broadly, try this in their system, adapt and refine and learn and improve if necessary. So really that's what I wanted to convey. This slide here, steps. What we did find, by the way, is implementation. As academics was kind of fun, but implementation is the nut of it all. So when we moved towards implementation, we developed a series of spreadsheets and tools to really go from our computer programs, translating this into the form and format that would be most useful to the health system. And I'm just scrolling through this now because there's a tremendous amount of detail. So open it up for discussion, and Nick, back to you. You may want to go take people off of mute. We can, people have any questions or would be interested in beta testing.
Everyone is off mute. You can also send in questions via the chat function, but I'll open it up to the floor. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Let's kick things off.
Remind people that they may be on mute on their end also.
Yeah, entirely possible.
The question again?
Are there any just general questions, clarification points? The floor is open now for any comments.
No questions. I'm, as so many people involved through the universities in CHOT, a professor, so I have a homework assignment for you guys, which is I'd like sort of Nick to send a follow-up email and really think who in your health system might be interested in this type of work. There's anybody, and again, broad. It's not just primary care. It's anywhere where we're trying to create team-based schedules.
Yeah, Jim, a little about, I just personally have a question. You mentioned sort of the intensity or the level of involvement that would be required to sort of test this. Could you talk about what level of involvement you'd be looking for other than just simply, I mean, is it just a meetup with the person, the scheduler who deals with this? Is it access to some sort of infrastructure?
The way this worked in our case study was two people in the systems were really, in the One Health system, were really kind of the key points of contact. What to run the model, and we understand the teams and who's on them, and constraints on their time. Benny only works Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, whatever, things like that. we don't huge sort of data dump from weight IT involved necessarily. It's really probably the measure of the clinical and the person doing scheduling. Really, of course, is always like a physician champion who's going to have this.
But it's mostly Excel-based then, right? So assuming they're working out of Excel, that's the platform?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is it was really an iterative process. So a couple of meetings, a couple of phone calls, let's run some results, let's share them back with you, and then, of course, when individuals at the health system see the results, they say, oh, we forgot to tell you something. We forgot to tell you about this sports medicine clinic. You start to look at results, you as the experts, see why the results won't work. And it's because we didn't know the nuance of the scheduling problem. So there's this iterative thing over a couple of months of going back and forth and finding all of the needs that are, we would call constraints on the scheduling challenge.
So let me clarify. So what you're looking for, or maybe looking for, is a site that has all of those elements, like a doctor, the person who brings them back, the front desk, the check-in, the schedules, nursing, MAs, something, all of those elements, pretty much to tell you what their are or their wants are. And then guys plug it in, and then you guys plug it in and tell them what problems are, what they're capable of, or what they can and can't do. Is that correct?
Somewhat. So let me modify that a little bit, if I could. If you're looking in a context that's I provide sort of team-based, collectively, you and I are responsible for a panel of patients, and if patients can't see me, at least they can see you, or let it the other way. If they can't see you, they can see me, which is better than seeing a complete stranger, but not ideal. It's that sort of team-based approach. Then how do we create your week or month-to-month scheduling templates to maximize the number or minimize the amount of time they have to wait to see either you or I? I mean, the general problem. So we're looking for context like that, and then to really engage and do the work, it's really a couple of people on our team who will go back and forth every 2 weeks and have either a face or a conference call and email back and forth results and chat about them and continuously improve them until there are templates that look good. And at that point in time, the best thing to do is what we did, which is, we've got some good templates. You've captured all of our dynamics. Let's compare that to what happened last year. Now, they kind of needed a data dump, but let's just go to real testing going forward. Residents in the mix, you have new books coming in every year, so you have to create new templates. So we had that additional layer of complexity here, but also that nice thing, it was kind of easy to test because every summer there's going to be a new who worked in template decision.
Right. And are you looking at it for a particular number of individuals in this pilot? Like talking about a small group, a large group? Does it matter?
I thought about capping it because if we had a ton of interest, no, it doesn't matter. I'd love to find 2 systems. I can imagine that we'd start to draw straws in less than 10 systems. The more we can test it and the more we can help create schedules, the better.
Okay. The PowerPoint you just showed us, is that available to us to read over after this or not?
We can make them available. I think Nick is going to put up the me if I'm wrong, Nick, the WebEx, the recording of this, the movie file, right?
Put up the MP4 file, but Kate, what I might recommend is just I can connect you and Jim offline, and you two can touch base via phone or email, and that way, Jim, you can best address needs and then if she takes this back to her organization.
Well, yeah. I can. Your email's right here in front of me, so I can just email you about getting a course. I just make it available to the people that are be interested in it.
That's cool.
Okay.
Jim, one other question I had, though, similar, related to Texas Children's, actually, is have any of the functions, I'm sure you could just build this in, sort of the cost function with the cost of either float pool or, in locum physician, basically a lot easier, for, from the availability perspective. You can just plug them in, but maybe there are different cost restraints involved with them. You guys had to do that yet, or do you already have formulas built in that they're going to take that into account? The grant, it might allow someone to be more available, but it's costing the system a little bit more.
Phrasing your question, so I'll rephrase your question in a way that I can say yes. But we haven't had to do that specifically, like around flow pools. The approach is to basically have a different use word, but a template approach to the problem, and then custom the specifics to particular health system's needs, and it just wasn't there in this case. But something we have started to look at is using this in a what-if way. So if we had an additional person of professionals, how could that improve the optimal or achieve the same results at lower cost? So, you take it's in option, it's sometimes called relaxation. So if we add courses or constraints in any way, what's the benefit of it, basically?
Right. Well, great. Probably can speak Adam about this with Texas Children's, but I know they have used this resource in the past, and Kate, we can definitely touch base on some of the things even we've done here in our work with Kay in sort of incorporating these, mainly to the other thing, Jim, just to sort of twist your brain with one of the things we've identified with Texas Children's that they've been doing very well is the idea of work share for parents. So it's either work share for moms, recent moms, or work share for recent dads. You can imagine it's going to require some additional sort of relaxation, to use your term, because now all of a sudden you've got a physician out for a period that maybe doesn't merit bringing on their FTE, but at the same time this person might be for a few weeks only available for 10 or 15 hours.
Right. So one is, we would come up with these long templates and then skipped over a lot of the implementation stuff. There was a slide that we called sort of the post-optionality tool. So here's the optimal template. Oh, but Benneyan's out on paternity leave. So I have to move him out of some cells and put somebody else in some cells, meaning who works that particular function. So kind of term like that.
We can't move him to put. I'm trying to see the name.
Well, great. Well, I do appreciate that, and Kate, I will follow up with you and Kay at Texas Children's to make sure we connect you to. But any remaining questions? Jim, your parting wisdom.
Everybody for attending and for the WebEx logistics issue earlier. But it's the whole value of CHOP, which is pilot test and then try to put it into some of the other systems. And nothing that not every project will be the perfect fit everywhere, but we want to challenge our members, the health systems, to help be conduits to the system. If it's not in your particular functional area, is there somewhere in the system? And that's respectful to the project, but to all the projects.
Right, no, understood. All right. Great, well, I get it. I do want to end with just a little bit of housekeeping as well. Recall that next week is our next webinar. We're cramming these together here in the summer, but next week we have a charming presenter talking about the impact of organization tenure on nurses' perceptions towards 3 Studer Group tools, so we encourage you to attend that. As Jim mentioned, we will be sending up a follow-up email to those of you who are in attendance today to see if there are any other we can meet your needs. But with all this information will be hosted on chatnsf.org by the end of business today. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.